A grotesque water monster blew a horn, and the pet dogs along the coast, as if summoned, rushed uncontrollably into the sea. This was just one of the most ordinary hunting methods used by the water people. Not only could they relocate ocean garbage, they could also instantly corrode any metal object. Yet no one expected that such a powerful race would ultimately be defeated by humans. Solt, the representative of the water people, escaped from the tight encirclement of soldiers. Buckley, the male protagonist who had a close relationship with him, instantly became the target of public criticism. Though said to be under strict protection, it was no different from house arrest. Buckley received more than a dozen anonymous death threats every day, and every meal had to go through multiple layers of testing. However, he harbored a secret that no one knew. Ever since he was exposed to Solt's sonic attack last time, his body had been becoming increasingly strange. Medical equipment showed no problems, yet Buckley felt something was wrong with his entire body. There was only one way to calm himself down: burying his head in pure, ice-cold, clear water. While Buckley struggled in pain, negotiations between humans and the water people had entered a white-hot stage. That day, pet dogs in coastal towns, lured by a strange sound, all rushed uncontrollably into the sea. The water people explained that they were simply hunting, just as humans fish in the sea. The human representative was so furious that the two sides quarreled fiercely in the hall like people shouting abuse on the street. However, Kate, the head of the Joint Task Force, sensed something unusual. He felt the hunting was just a smokescreen and that the water people might be planning something bigger. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the tactical commander discovered a shocking truth. The water people were secretly melting the Antarctic glaciers. In recent days, they had used special ice crystals to cover the surface of the ice sheets, perfectly shielding heat and satellite detection. By the time humans noticed, it was already too late to stop it. A glacier that should have taken decades to melt had completely disappeared in just 6 hours. No one expected the water people to possess such black technology for instantly melting ice. Once all the world's glaciers melted, sea levels would rise by a full 100 meters, an extinction-level blow to humanity. The human negotiators urgently launched a new round of talks, but the water people's response was cold and tough. They claimed they were merely restoring the glaciers to their natural state, and that humans had already started melting them. The water people were only slightly accelerating the process. The human representative nearly spat blood from anger at this rhetoric. The water people then issued an ultimatum. Humans must complete the governance of the oceans and rivers within 5 years, or they would release all the glaciers and cause human civilization to disappear completely from Earth. Buckley, at the center of the storm, was also having a hard time. He, his wife, and daughter were all under strict official surveillance. Even when the couple wanted to whisper, a row of guards stood right beside them. Yet for some unknown reason, starting in the evening, the guards at the door would deliberately allow Buckley to leave, and the surveillance cameras in every area were intentionally disabled. Buckley had no interest in investigating why. As soon as the time came, he impatiently rushed into the sea. On one hand, it was due to his body's craving for seawater. On the other, he wanted to meet Solt again. Unfortunately, his repeated calls only brought disappointment. What Buckley didn't know was that this help actually came from secret orders by high-level officials in the United States and France. The French female general suspected that humans had set up sonic barriers in the sea that blocked internal communications among the water people, which was why Buckley couldn't find Solt. Meanwhile, Kate found the anxious prime minister. Before the attack on the water people's headquarters, he had overheard high-level conversations repeatedly mentioning the word disperse. Kate suspected it might be a weapon targeted at the water people. He warned the prime minister that if humans made any more irrational decisions that plunged the two races into war, Britain would be the first to suffer. The economy would collapse within 6 months, and the prime minister's political career would end. Kate's warning hit like a heavy hammer, prompting the prime minister to make an important decision. That night, a secret operation targeting Buckley was launched. The door guard quietly replaced the poison testing equipment while delivering food. Once Buckley, caught off guard, fell unconscious, a pair of fully armed people in white secretly entered the room. They disabled all monitoring, injected an unknown liquid into Buckley's body, then quickly cleaned up the scene as if nothing had happened. When Buckley woke up, he felt no difference in his body. As usual, he hurried to the seaside, buried his head in the water, and called Solt's name again and again. This time, the sea finally responded. Solt's figure slowly emerged. The two embraced tightly underwater, as if trying to make up for all the time they had been separated. But Solt brought a despairing piece of news. The water people were still working day and night to accelerate the melting of the glaciers. The conflict between the two races was about to become irreconcilable. Solt still believed Buckley was the only hope. He asked him to find a trustworthy person and send a signal to the sea requesting something called code. Solt couldn't explain exactly what the word represented, only emphasizing that it held a sacred status in the ancient language of the water people and could produce unexpected effects during negotiations. Carrying this mysterious mission, Buckley found his superior, Kate, and reported everything Salt had revealed. Although they couldn't guess what code specifically meant based on their trust in Salt, they decided to incorporate the word into the official message sent to the water people. This way, it could be done discreetly while secretly testing the water people's reaction to the term. However, no one expected that after the signal was sent day after day, the sea surface remained deathly silent. The water people gave no response at all. Just as hope was fading, something even more terrifying happened. Large numbers of water people's corpses began appearing on beaches and ports around the world. Scientists retrieved and dissected the bodies, discovering that the water people had died from a highly customized lethal virus. This virus could block the water people's gills, causing them to suffocate to death. Kate instantly understood this was not a natural disaster, but a meticulously planned man-made catastrophe. All water people were connected and communicated through an algae network, so the virus spread with terrifying speed. In just a few days, the water people had reached the brink of extinction. Kate finally saw the true nature of this war. From beginning to end, humans had never treated the water people as an equal civilization, only as a potentially threatening competitor. Once the danger level reached a certain threshold, they would immediately activate the extermination protocol. While Buckley was still worrying about Salt's fate, the door to his room suddenly opened. It turned out the water people had taken the initiative to request negotiations and specifically demanded that Buckley attend as the human representative. Buckley was overjoyed only Salt would make such a request. Although he had been mentally prepared, seeing his beloved safe and sound with his own eyes still made him breathe a long sigh of relief. Salt's face looked somewhat haggard. He bluntly announced that the war was over and humans had won. The water people had suffered heavy losses from the virus strike and could no longer pose any threat. However, they would not submit. They had already buried the core technology of the water people deep beneath the sea gates. He warned those secretly coveting it to abandon the idea. Following the teleprompter, Buckley conveyed humanity's goodwill to Salt. They were willing to designate an independent marine habitat for the water people and promised to protect it from pollution, noise, and viruses. Salt accepted the proposal, but as he left, he sharply pointed out that this habitat was nothing more than a hunting ground that certain people could close at any time. Tears welled in Buckley's eyes. He could hardly imagine how painful Salt must feel at that moment. While others were immersed in the joy of victory, a piercing cracking sound suddenly rang out. The large glass water tank in the center of the venue began to show web-like cracks. Panic erupted instantly and everyone fled in all directions. The distraught Buckley was forcibly dragged away by others. It seemed this negotiation venue no longer needed to exist. At this moment, Kate received a call from the attending doctor. Buckley's brain had mutated for no apparent reason. Perhaps he was the code the water people spoke of. Not an object, but a symbol of a certain identity. Without any hesitation, Kate decisively sent Buckley to the seaside. Soon after, Salt emerged from the seawater again. The two held hands tightly and slowly sank into the blue ocean. Buckley completely merged with the seawater, as if he had become a true water person.